Hey there, this is Insomniac Adrian here with my first review for my new web show. Instead of complaining something lame, I'm going to talk about something freaking awesome. One of my favorite anime movies of all time. Spirit, Stallion of the Cimarron. Probably some of you are watching this right now are like, what, that Matt Damon horse movie that anyone barely remembers and could even give a crap? This film may not be considered a classic film, though I consider it to be totally underrated. Released by DreamWorks Animation 2002, Spirit, Stallion of Cimarron stars Matt Damon, providing narration for a Mustang stallion named Spirit. The film met moderate box office success and solid enough reviews, and then got nominated for an Oscar for Best Animated Film. One critic from Film Source News calls it the best animated story since The Lion King. Though personally I like this movie more than Lion King, and even Bambi. Now wait everybody, I didn't say that this film is better than both of these Disney classics. I just said I like this movie more, which is why it is totally impossible for you to disagree with me. All three movies have similar setup, an animated movie which shows the life and growth of an animal that's supposed to have responsibility as a leader to his herd. Some people call The Lion King Bambi in the jungle, while I call Spirit to be The Lion King in the American West, which I think Jeffrey Katzenberg may have thought of that when it started production of his movie.
Yeah, well, I'm gonna go build my own theme park with blackjack and hookers. In fact, forget the park.
That's not to say that I don't appreciate all the efforts the people did with both Disney films. These films furthered the technology of animation that made this film possible to be made. And of course, all these films have different approaches with their own screenwriting and production, which is totally cool with me. I'm not really going to tell you which film is better. I'm just going to explain to you why I like this film better. Spirit, Stallion of Cimarron was made during a time when DreamWorks was really trying to distance itself from Disney and establish themselves as their own animation company with their own style. During the 90s, when Disney was beginning their renaissance, every other movie studio tried to make their own animated blockbuster by copying the Disney formula with princesses and talking animals. Most of the film failed miserably because some people can tell a knockoff very easily and would prefer the real thing. These movies didn't have the effort and quality control that Disney had at the time. Jeffrey Katzenberg made the smart business decision to make different kinds of animated film rather than just directly copy Disney, beginning with a more edgy, satirical CGI animated film that can appeal to an older crowd, a British claymation comedy, a buddy adventure film starring characters that would be the funny sidekicks to a more boring protagonist in a Disney film, and of course, the brutal deconstruction and parody of the standard Disney film, with pop culture references, which, ironically, started a new style overused formula in animated film. Though I think DreamWorks are getting better by not getting too attached to that formula now. DreamWorks stopped the Disney monopoly for animated films, and now other movie studios started making their own animated films. Some are amazing, some are mediocre. Now I'm going to explain the several reasons why I really like this movie. It's so different from every other animated film at this time, and still is. I would like to talk about the film animation. It's wonderful, breathtaking animation. This is considered to be a 2D animated film. However, this film combined the best effort of 2D animation along with the technology of 3D animation of its time, which is what Jeffrey Katzenberg calls tradigital animation. 3D CGI animation is cool and all, but there is something amazing to see the sharp, fluid, simple, and clean work of great hand-drawn animation. However, there is, of course, limitations to the animation when it comes to environment. It would be nearly impossible for it to hand-draw sweeping, complex camera shots with 2D drawn characters. The film's 3D CGI technology allowed for the wonderfully drawn 2D characters to be in the massive, epic scale of the Wild West, which allowed the audience to immerse themselves to this wonderful environment and the incredible scope of the movie. There are other great CGI animation techniques to create a higher level of detail in order to make the film so alive and realistic. making the movie more engaging to me. Though if I have a complaint for the animations, that they may have relied on CGI a little bit too much at times. There are background characters that could have easily been 2D that can be a little distracting for me, but I can give them a little slack since this anime technique was pretty new for them at the time. If only the film was more successful, perhaps the technology and techniques for 2D, 3D hybrid animation films could have progressed more. Maybe we would have gotten something like Paperman much more earlier, but whatever. Now we'll begin talking about the storytelling techniques that make this film so unique and interesting to me. Unlike most animated films, the animals do not talk to each other. Instead, all the horses communicate with each other with pantomiming, emotional gestures, and simple horse sounds. Sure, there are some narration from Matt Damon, but they don't overuse that too much. That may seem too obtrusive for me. Most of Spirit animation is done by James Baxter. Some may ask, who is James Baxter?
James Baxter!
That's right, he's the dude who animated and voiced James Baxter the horse of Adventure Time. He also animated Ariel, Belle, Rafiki, Quasimodo for Disney, then later left for them for DreamWorks to do more animation, such as the amazing opening 2D animation of Kung Fu Panda.
Let's fight.
The man's a talentful master when it comes to animating horses. James Baxter brings so much life, personality, weight, and emotion to this horse. Spirit is such a fun character to watch on screen. Even when there is no narration from Matt, I can clearly see what's going on in his character's head. Easy to emphasize with him and understand what he's saying without words, particularly with these close-ups. I can just hear the dialogue in my head when I watch this character. The rest of the horses are also well animated. The film will rely more on visuals than straight dialogue sometimes, which makes it more cinematic. The soundtrack of this movie is pretty great too. Bryan Adams does solid work here that helps with the tone and atmosphere of the movie. I don't think the soundtrack is as catchy as The Lion King, or even as Tarzan, but it serves the movie's emotional content very well. Since the movie is not a straight musical, I think it's appropriate that the music shouldn't be overly catchy or show-stopping. The song blends with the movie very well to me, without being too obtrusive or annoying to me. Some of the songs have nice pop hooks that are pleasant to listen to while being mellow and relaxing, which helps for the more leisurely moments of the film, such as the song "This Is Where I Belong." The lyrics also provide some inner dialogue for the emotions of the main character, similar to Tarzan, which works fairly well. There is a pretty fun, almost cock rock song called "Get Off My Back" that's kind of badass and fun for this really cool scene where this horse get his swag on. The one major hit song, "Here I Am," is a cheesy, adult contemporary song with a little country flavor. It may be a little corny, but I like it very much. However, I like to point out that the intro version from the movie, it's way better than the standard radio version in the end credits, with its more orchestra instrumental arrangements from Hans Zimmer. Speaking of which, the soundtrack has some of famous film composer Hans Zimmer more underappreciated deep cuts in his entire catalog. He does his regularly expected great orchestration work to make the film seem so grand and epic, while incorporating some other touches to fit with the film's setting, such as the use of old country motif with acoustic guitars and fiddles, a slight touch of Native American wind instruments, and even a little electric keyboard that actually fits pretty well, especially when incorporated with Bryan Adams' pop songs. Some of the highlights include the track "Rain," a very fun, playful motif for the named character. However, the major highlight for me is the music for Run Free, which plays during the thrilling climactic chase. One of my favorite Hans Zimmer works was to be right up there with the Dark Knight theme and the Pirate of the Caribbean theme. The music for Run Free is so exciting and adventurous it could be used for action movie trailers. Some people might consider this movie to be a little slow, sure, but for me, I was never really bored with this movie. It's not as fast paced as other animated movies, but that's what I like about it. There are just scenes of the movie where the audiences spend time with the Old West environment, creating a strong atmospheric feel that makes the film very immersive. The film focuses on not just atmosphere, but on the characters' emotions and the characters' relationships. I would describe this film to be emotionally raw. The film does not obscure, overshadow, or cloud its main emotional drive with snarky one-liners with pop culture references. Many animated movies like to fluff up their script with tacked-on, pointless comedic scenes, and sometimes they bore me if they're not funny enough. I know I may upset some people, but I find the fixer-upper scene from Frozen to be kind of boring. It just stops the movie dead on its track just for being possibly the weakest song of the movie. Slow down for some arbitrary, semi-romantic song, even though the romance is not even the main focus of the movie. If you enjoyed that part, that's okay to me. Don't make me a killjoy to you. But I'm chapter skipping that with my Blu-ray. The plot, while simple, does not toy like any substance. The plot is a variation of The Odyssey, or Toy Story, where the main character just wants to go home. Simple, but very relatable. Spirit motivation has a lot of emotional weight to his journey, thanks to the amazing introduction of the movie, where we see his childhood, where it showcased his character traits of bravery, his joy of running the field, enjoying freedom, his passion and responsibility to protect his herd, and his relationship with his mother. The movie's foundation is not built on a complex plot, but through Spirit's relationships with other characters. Spirit's mother represents his connection with his homeland, and the main motivation. The ego that Spirit races with also served this role. The Colonel character is a strong antagonistic foil to Spirit, as he represents imprisonment and enslavement by the American colonialism against Spirit, who thematically represents freedom of the Old West, which helped build up the weight of the climax as these two opponents face each other in this incredible chase scene. Little Creek, who developed a strong relationship with Spirit despite Spirit being distrustful and have disdain for him early on, later on become incredible allies with him, with common interests, learning to have a deep respect for each other despite their differences. The romance of Rain caused for Spirit to mildly go what Joseph Campbell calls the refusal of the return, as she makes Spirit more comfortable staying with Little Creek's tribe for a while, but ultimately has to go home, while still being conflicted for leaving her. It's these relationships that help develop the character Spirit. Spirit is actually one of my favorite film characters of all time. The commentary track for the DVD actually compare him to another of my favorite characters, John McClane from Die Hard.
He's an easy guy to like.
Come out to the coast, we'll get together, have a few laughs.
And a hard man to kill.
Probably for his snarky sense of humor, struggle with authority, and tenacity. So, just for fun, let's compare the movie with Die Hard was a vengeance. There are some people that felt the film had some revisionistic point of view that criticized the white settlers for logging and killing. Actually, I felt that the antagonists in the movie were treated with some respect, especially comparing to other historical films. There's actually an amazing, uncliche moment with the main antagonistic character, the Colonel. Spoiler alert. After Spirit and Little Creek escape from the Colonel and his men, instead of doing the typical Disney death scene, he just gracefully let them go, with exchanging the most coolest, most badass glances ever in film. Which to me is more satisfying for me and gives more depth to a character that could have been too one-dimensional. The white settlers for the most part act like regular normal people.
Come on now. It'll be alright. Come on. That's...
Not soulless stormtroopers. So no, I don't think there's any negativity to the white settlers at all in this movie. The film just shows some basic American history that I think is fairly accurate. Now, am I hyping this movie too much for some people? Perhaps. I just think this film shows some great filmmaking, particularly from not having the horses talk to each other. This kind of animated film has been attempted several times before, but during production the studios usually chicken out and sometimes tack on some useless, annoying dialogue.
Knock down the tree. Right, got it.
Yeah, I also got it, Dad. Knock down the tree, okay, and then maybe you just reach for it. Ow, okay.
Dad, are we really from the same litter?
Because they think kids are too stupid to understand. However, I think this kind of animated filmmaking can be pushed even further by having even less dialogue and no lyrics from songs. I just really like what the filmmakers used the great cinematic advice. Show, don't tell. Which is why this film is one of the most cinematic animated film I ever seen. I think the only other film I can mildly compare it to is perhaps Conan the Barbarian, in terms of direct simplicity and overall high quality of filmmaking. So in conclusion, Spirit, Stallion of the Cimarron is a well-produced movie with its solid soundtrack and impressive animation. The film works efficiently with a tightly written screenplay that has strong emotional content from a simplicity and atmosphere, its strong main character, and that character's relationship. It's one of my favorite animated movies of all time.